cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war! Sorry about that. Today at History Gems we'll be discussing what is the greatest warrior in history. If there's one thing that will remain constantly fascinating about history, it's battles. And for battles to be fought, you need soldiers or warriors to do the fighting. Indeed, no matter what civilization, what time in history, there is always conflict. To work out who was the premier force of any given time or place would be relatively easy because you can see who won the battles. But it becomes tempting to say, well, what if X had fought Y? What would have happened then? But as soon as you start doing the comparisons out of time, you've got an issue of equipment. No matter how brave a Sikh warrior from the 19th century is, they're not going to stand much chance against a modern soldier with modern equipment. Indeed, if we're talking about overall killing, there's no denying that the 20th and 21st centuries are the ones where the soldiers did more killing than anywhere else. And that's largely down to inventions like this, the M4 carbine, here with suppressor and telescopic sight. That's going to beat a samurai sword, no matter how brave the samurai holding it is. I think, therefore, to be useful, we have to look at the overall training of these people. How motivated were these warriors to fight to the death? Because surely that's going to help you work out whether they are or aren't going to win a battle overall. In which case, we run into a problem pretty quickly. There are very few standing armies, full-time professional soldiers in history. Indeed, actually, a lot of the fighting in many different cultures was down to the aristocratic clan, or indeed a certain division of warriors. And therefore, while they were certainly good, there were rules. There were other things they had to do in life. They weren't just soldiers by trade. Citizen armies, perhaps first started by the Romans, where you fought for your nation or organisation or culture, have certainly been around for a while, and it's really where we see the most damage happening with this particular way of fighting in the 20th century, with the world wars and Korea, etc. You're talking about millions of men and women now fighting, and indeed the casualty levels are at millions, but these people really wanted to get back to being accountants or something like that. Other cultures like the Aztec had very ritual versions of war, so really they wouldn't have stood a chance against people who just fought for the sake of it. Instead, we have to look at those who have had warfare born into them, as it were. This is a Mamluk, and the Mamluks were Christian slaves brought into the Egyptian society. It was a similar sort of thing with Janissaries under the Ottomans, so that these people were raised to be warriors. Another and very famous group, of course, would be the samurai, who as a class in society were only allowed to fight. They spent their entire time honing their skills, and certainly they had great equipment too. Surely these guys are some of the greatest warriors who ever existed, living by the code of Bushido. But I think that there's somebody else who does better than that. That would be the Spartans. And indeed 2,500 years later from their prime, we're still making movies and stories about these pretty much unstoppable warriors. This was a society where at the age of 7 as a boy you were taken away and put into boot camp. You were taught to kill, assassinate, hunt, train, steal. I can't see these guys losing to anybody else if it was one-on-one, man-to-man fighting. These guys have to be the ultimate warriors in history. Look, I know I'm not the first guy to have said the Spartans are the greatest warriors in history, but I stand by that, and I stand by the other people who come to the same opinion. Imagine being taken away from your family age 7 and having martial prowess inured into you for 10 or 11 years after that. You then had to serve in the army for 10 years before you could become a citizen of Sparta. So with that thought about, quite frankly, child brutality, it's worth thinking about as glamorous as warriors are, and you can never take away the fascination of battles. Are they really something we ever want to be experiencing ever again? You like this? You want more? Well, every day on the internet, History Gems is active. History Gems is obviously on Twitter, but also on Facebook. I've just broken 5,000 likes. Thanks very much, everybody. But if you want the ultimate, then I suggest The Busy Person's Guide to British History. It's available on Amazon now. See you soon.